It's time to revisit the biggest trade in San Antonio Spurs history.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
What is up, San Antonio Spurs fans, Toronto Raptors fans, NBA fans? Welcome to TSR Sports. Hey, maybe a Clippers fan stop putting in here too. I recently did a video about the trade between the San Antonio Spurs and Atlanta Hawks, the DeJounte Murray trade, on who I felt maybe won that. And I got to thinking about this trade, like, you know what? If we just look at just on a player basis, an asset basis, who won this trade? Because if you're not familiar with the situation, Kawhi Leonard requested a trade from the San Antonio Spurs. Things got really bad between him and the team in his camp. There was a lot of disagreement about his injury rehab program, so he ended up requesting a trade and was traded to the Toronto Raptors. While I'm going over this video, drop a comment down below. Now that, you know, hindsight being 2020, do you like this trade player-wise? Do you not like this trade? What parts do you think the Spurs won? What parts do you think the Spurs lost? Hit that thumbs up if you like, support the channel, and subscribe for more Spurs content. Let's get into the meat of these stories. So if we look at this trade strictly short term, well, clearly the Toronto Raptors won the trade. They won an NBA championship. And you can asterisk that thing and make all the excuses you want if you're a naysayer of that championship. Well, the Warriors were hurt, and they were out with KD and went out with Clay. Look, doesn't matter. You play to win the game. And they won the title, and you cannot take that away from them. So short term, they clearly won that. But now we have to dig in here and get into a little bit of the players that were involved. The Raptors received Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green. They each played 1 year for the Raptors, and it was a one and done. So it was a 1 year rental for both players, but they won a title. So great, good for them. For the Spurs, things get a little convoluted as we start going into this. The Spurs first received DeMar DeRozan, who had a good 3 years with the Spurs, but fortunately no playoff success. Jakob Poeltl played 4.5 years with the Spurs, more on him later. And then a protected 2019 first-round pick, which ended up being Keldon Johnson, who has played 4 seasons with the Spurs and is one of our best players, although a lot of you are saying we should maybe trade him to move up in this year's draft or get another first pick. But things start getting a little mighty here because when you look at it this way, it's done with the Raptors. Kawhi, Danny Green, done. For the Spurs, though, the story is still ongoing. First off, DeMar DeRozan ended up being traded to the Chicago Bulls, and he received Thaddeus Young. More on him later. Al-Farouq Amino, nothing ever happened with him. A 2025 first-round pick that is top 10 protected, and second-round picks in 2022 and 25. That 22 pick, we already used that and got rid of that. I don't remember who we drafted and we traded. Something insignificant happened with that. As we move further along into this trade, Thaddeus Young was traded to the Raptors, our favorite team to trade with, for a lottery-protected 2022 first-round pick that I forgot. This is who we drafted with him until I did some research. And by the way, I did a lot of research on this, so if I missed some picks, please let me know. There's a lot going on here with this whole scenario. We ended up drafting Malaki Branham, who has turned out to be a very exciting player for us. Yes, only 1 year, 19-year-old rookie, but just to see his growth, his development from the start of the season to the end of the season, he's really showing Spurs fans and the NBA that he can be a true 3-level scorer, and I think he has a pretty decent high ceiling. He would be a fantastic 6-man off the bench, or maybe even a starter someday for our Spurs. But wait, there's more! Jakob Poeltl was traded to the Toronto Raptors, and in that trade, the Spurs received Khem Birch. Never going to play again for the San Antonio Spurs, so disregard that. But they also got a 2024 first-round pick that is top 6. Yeah, I made a little error, so I had to do a... Don't throw it in. I mean, top 6 protected first pick, and then they'll have second-round picks in 23 and 25. So if we just look at everything as a whole, the Spurs ended up, from this trade, getting Keldon Johnson, Malaki Branham. We still have a second-round pick in 23. We have a first-round top 6 protected pick in 24. A first-round top 10 protected pick in 25, plus 2 second-rounders in 25. So this trade, this story isn't over. You might say, well, TSR, I think you're reading too much into it, getting assets from players that were, I don't think so. I think this is all part of the story. This is part of the story. This is what the Raptors received and what the Spurs received. That story isn't finished yet. So long-term, it's up in the air. If Kawhi Leonard stayed with the Spurs, do I think they would have won another championship? Yeah, honestly, Spurs fans, I don't think so. I think we made the Western Conference Finals. Winning another championship, not likely. Plus, since Kawhi has left the Spurs and Raptors, he has had a plethora, favorite word some of you, of injuries with LA, and he's clearly not the same player he was with San Antonio or Toronto, so we could be in a tough situation if they kept Kawhi. If the situation worked out with Kawhi, the team worked it out and he stayed with the team, The Spurs be in a really tough situation where the seasons where he played 50 games and they're good enough to get in the playoffs, but not good enough to win. And then you're in that really tough spot we see a lot of teams sit in for a long time. Utah Jazz are a great example. They were good enough every year to make the playoffs, maybe make a little small run, but never won a title and never got a high draft pick because they were always in the playoffs. And that's the worst spot to be. He's good enough to always make the playoffs, but not good enough to win and not bad enough to get good draft picks. So we don't want to be there. Now, for the San Antonio Spurs, we did have quite a few losing seasons since Kawhi left. And that was tough to go through. But, as you all know, we may be reaping the rewards soon as the Spurs won the #1 overall pick in this year's draft. And they're going to draft the biggest prospect since LeBron James. And with the other assets they've picked up, players like Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, so forth and so on, could the San Antonio Spurs be on the edge of another dynasty? If they kept Kawhi, more than likely, none of the players you see here on this thumbnail, definitely not Wemby, none of these players probably ever play for the San Antonio Spurs. So long term, while we don't know the answer, things are certainly working well for the San Antonio Spurs as it is right now. And if the Spurs end up winning multiple championships, and that's a big if, but if they win multiple championships with any of the pieces they received from this Kawhi Leonard trade, if those players contributed, if Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham were part of a championship team, or any of the draft picks we end up using, and any of those players become major contributors to the Spurs and possible future championships, plural, then long-term the Spurs would have won the trade. In the end, this trade had to happen. I mean, I would say both teams won if we're just looking at this on a business side of things. Kawhi wanted out. Would I have liked to get more? No disrespect to DeMar DeRozan for him. Sure, yes, but it's what we got. And the Raptors got a title. And who knows what we have in the future. So, to summarize, the Raptors may have won the battle, but the Spurs could end up winning the war. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. And as always, turn the volume down if you're wearing earphones. Go Spurs, go!
And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal.